India stands at a historic crossroads aiming for a $5 trillion economy, a vision that promises not just modern prosperity, but also a new era of global influence and national pride. This ambitious goal has captured the imagination of millions, fueling hope for a brighter, more equitable future. This dream conjures images of gleaming skyscrapers, cutting-edge technology, and bustling cities where opportunity seems limitless. It's a future where innovation thrives, and India stands tall among the world's economic giants. Yet behind these headlines and glossy images, the true engine of growth is powered by millions of ordinary workers, factory hands, construction laborers, garment makers, and countless others whose daily toil keeps the wheels of progress turning. Their stories are rarely told, though their sweat, determination, and sacrifice fuel the nation's relentless march forward. They are the silent architects of India's economic miracle. While GDP figures soar and headlines celebrate record growth, many of these workers struggle daily for survival, often without recognition, fair wages, or reward. Their lives remain on the margins, overshadowed by the nation's success. They work in the vast, unorganized sector, where legal protections are few, social security is lacking, and vulnerability is high. For many, job security and basic rights are distant dreams. The contrast between the dream and reality is stark: economic success and comfort for some, but persistent hardship and struggle for many others. The gap between rich and poor is visible everywhere. As India races toward its economic target, we must pause and ask, who pays the highest price for this progress? Whose voices are left unheard in the rush for development? This essay explores the hidden cost of India's ambition, delving into the lives of workers who are often forgotten in the grand narrative, yet whose resilience and hard work are the foundation of the nation's growth. By understanding their experiences and struggles, we can begin to question whether true development is possible if it is built on the backs of those denied basic rights, dignity, and fair opportunities. The journey to prosperity must also be a journey toward justice for all, ensuring that every Indian shares in the nation's progress and hope for a better tomorrow. The $5 trillion goal is more than a number. It's a statement of India's intent to join the world's economic giants. It promises better infrastructure, more jobs, and a brighter future for over 1 billion people. The hope is that growth will lift millions out of poverty, funding hospitals, schools, and social safety nets. For young Indians, it means the promise of stable, well-paying jobs and upward mobility. But the focus on rapid growth often overlooks the quality and inclusivity of that growth. Policies may favor big corporations, leaving small businesses and informal workers behind. The critical question, will this prosperity be shared widely or concentrated among a few? The official narrative is hopeful, but the reality is more complex. As India chases big numbers, the challenge is ensuring that growth benefits all, not just the privileged. True development must be measured by how it uplifts the most vulnerable. To truly grasp the human cost behind the numbers, meet Ravi and Minnu, two of the countless faces hidden behind the statistics. Their stories bring to life the struggles that often go unseen in the rush for progress. Ravi left his small village, filled with hope, for a factory job in the city. He was lured by promises of fair wages, steady work, and the dream of a better life for his family back home. But reality was harsh. Instead of opportunity, he faced withheld pay, unsafe conditions, and a relentless cycle of debt that trapped him in a web of exploitation with no easy way out. Quitting meant losing months of unpaid wages he desperately needed. Staying meant enduring daily abuse, long hours, and constant danger. The choice was impossible. Minnu, working in a garment factory producing clothes for global brands, was also promised good pay and safe accommodation. She hoped to support her family and build a future. Instead, she found herself confined to a guarded hostel, isolated from her loved ones, and forced to meet impossible production targets under constant surveillance. Her wages were docked for even minor infractions, and deductions for food and lodging left her with almost nothing to send home. Every month was a struggle to survive. Both Ravi and Minnu's stories reveal how the relentless pressure for cheap goods and rapid economic growth leads to severe exploitation of workers, stripping them of their rights and dignity. Their experiences are not isolated. They echo across India's vast, unorganized sector, affecting millions who work without protection or recognition. Behind every economic milestone and every new factory, there are real people whose rights and well-being are too often sacrificed for profit and progress. These stories remind us that true progress must never come at the cost of human dignity, safety, or hope for a better tomorrow. The true measure of a nation's growth is how it treats its most vulnerable citizens, not just its economic numbers. As we celebrate economic achievements and national milestones, we must not forget those who are left behind in the shadows of progress. Their voices, their struggles, and their hopes demand to be heard and included in the story of India's rise. Only then can we claim true progress for all. Forced labor today is often hidden, less about physical chains, more about invisible ones: debt, coercion, and fear. In modern workplaces, these invisible chains can be just as powerful as any lock or shackle, trapping people in cycles of exploitation that are hard to break. The International Labor Organization defines forced labor as work performed against one's will, under threat of punishment or penalty. This means that even if someone appears to be working voluntarily, the reality may be very different if they are being controlled or threatened. Withholding wages, as in Ravi's case, is a common tactic, creating debt bondage that traps workers indefinitely. When workers are not paid what they are owed, they may be forced to borrow money just to survive, sinking deeper into debt. Employers may invent charges or deduct wages for minor mistakes, ensuring debts never shrink. This manipulation of pay keeps workers dependent and unable to leave, no matter how hard they work. Unsafe conditions, lack of safety gear, and excessive hours are red flags. When workers are exposed to dangerous environments without protection, it shows a disregard for their well-being and rights. Minu's restricted movement, confined to a hostel, cut off from family, is another form of coercion. Limiting freedom of movement isolates workers, making it harder for them to seek help or escape. Psychological threats, intimidation, and verbal abuse keep workers compliant. Fear of losing their job, being reported to authorities, or facing violence can silence even the most desperate. Migrant workers are especially vulnerable, often threatened with police action or harm to their families back home. Their lack of local support and unfamiliarity with their rights make them easy targets for exploitation. These tactics strip workers of choice, making them labor by force, not free will. The constant pressure and surveillance leave little room for hope or escape. Forced labor is not always visible, but its impact is devastating. It affects not just the workers, but their families and entire communities, perpetuating cycles of poverty and suffering. Recognizing these signs is the first step to addressing the problem. By understanding how forced labor operates, we can better support those affected and push for change. Behind every cheap product may be a story of exploitation. The true cost of low prices is often paid by those who have the least power to speak out. Awareness is the beginning of change. By staying informed and spreading knowledge, we can help end forced labor and build a fairer world for all. Over 90% of India's workforce is in the informal sector, without contracts, minimum wage, or social security. That's more than 400 million people building roads, making clothes, harvesting crops, yet largely invisible to the law. Their jobs are precarious, easily lost, and employers hold immense power over them. The Global Slavery Index estimates millions in India live in modern slavery, forced labor, debt bondage, and more. Industries like brick kilns, agriculture, and textiles are especially notorious. Marginalized communities, Dalits, Adivasis, are most at risk, pushed into the harshest, most exploitative work. Discrimination and lack of opportunity trap them in cycles of poverty and abuse. Economic growth alone does not guarantee justice. The true scale of forced labor is hidden, but its victims are everywhere. Forced labor persists because of deep-rooted economic and structural issues. India's growth has not created enough secure, formal jobs. Millions must accept any work, no matter how exploitative. Lack of investment in labor-intensive industries leaves many in the informal sector. To cut costs, companies subcontract to unregulated workshops where abuse is easy to hide. Rural distress drives migrants to cities, where they're isolated and vulnerable to exploitation. Labor contractors prey on their desperation, trapping them in debt and coercion. Government policies sometimes prioritize growth over worker protections, relaxing regulations to attract investment. When economic targets overshadow human rights, exploitation flourishes. True progress requires putting people before profit. Forced labor in India is tied to the global economy. Goods made in exploitative conditions end up worldwide. Complex supply chains allow brands to claim ignorance, while pressure for low prices fuels abuse. Subcontracting to informal factories hides violations from auditors and inspectors. Multinational corporations profit, while workers bear the cost of low wages and unsafe conditions. Trade policies in wealthy nations often prioritize cheap imports over ethical sourcing. Consumer demand for cheap, fast goods perpetuates the cycle. Recognizing our role as consumers is crucial. Ethical choices can drive change. Transparency and accountability in supply chains are essential to ending exploitation. India's laws against forced labor are strong on paper but weak in practice. Enforcement is hampered by underfunded, understaffed inspectorates. One inspector may oversee thousands of workplaces. This makes regular checks impossible, emboldening employers to exploit workers with little fear of punishment. Legal battles are long and costly. Most victims lack resources to fight for justice. Corruption and collusion between officials and employers further undermine enforcement. Even when violations are found, convictions are rare and offenders often go unpunished. Political will to protect workers is often lacking, especially when business interests are at stake. In the rush for economic growth, worker rights become secondary. Laws alone are not enough. Without honest enforcement, they are meaningless. Real change requires commitment at every level. Ending forced labor and ensuring fair growth is possible, but demands action from all. The government must invest in enforcement, hire more inspectors, and punish violators swiftly. Economic policy should promote labor-intensive industries and create formal, decent jobs. Social safety nets, healthcare, education, security must protect the vulnerable. Global corporations must take real responsibility for their supply chains, ensuring fair wages and safe conditions. Supporting workers' rights to organize is key to lasting change. Consumers must demand transparency and choose ethical brands. India's $5 trillion dream must not come at the cost of its workers' dignity. The true test of progress is justice for all. Our choices, policy, business, and personal, will shape the nation's future.